Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University.
Hello friends, Namaskar. I, Dr. Bhavna Trivedi, an Assistant Professor of English, welcome you all to Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University video lecture series. Today, in this session, we are going to discuss one essay by very famous French critic Roland Barthes. The title of the topic is From Work to Text. That is one of the essays of your paper ENGM 308, right? Unit number 5, study of essays, right? Roland Barthes is a renowned French literary critic and philosopher. He was a highly influential figure in the field of structuralism and post-structuralism. His contribution in the field of semiotics is also remarkable. Semiotics or semiology is the study of sign and symbol in language. He was actually highly influenced by the ideas of Ferdinand de Saussure, the Swiss linguist. Roland Barthes can be studied as a figure of transition. He stands like a connecting bridge. In that case, his works allow us to, shift from structuralist theories of Ferdinand de Saussure and Lévi-Strauss to the post-structuralist ideas of Jean Derrida and Michel Foucault, which actually dismantles the idea of structuralism, and we can say it also builds on that means post-structuralism is found building on the ideas of structuralism. So in that case, before studying the theories or the ideas of post-structuralism, we can say the works of Roland Barthes actually help us to build a kind of background to understand the theories propounded by Jean Derrida and Michel Foucault. Before moving to the text of Roland Barthes, let us have a glance on what the structuralism is all about. Saussure's argument taking structuralism is that language is a system of signs, right? S-I-G-N, right? And that operates on a set of certain rules and conventions, right? As we have already, seen that in that particular lecture of Lang and Parole, right? Language is a system of sign, right? He gives two important terms, a signifier and signified, right? Signifier is actually that particular physical form of a sign, and signified is that particular meaning that we receive by taking that particular form of sign. Say for example, when I say T-R-E-E, tree, or when I write tree, you get that particular image of that tree and you understand that meaning of tree, right? So that letters particular, they are signifiers and the meaning is signified. Roland Barthes, the works of Roland Barthes actually, right, we can say is an expansion in that case to these particular ideas of signifier and signifying, and which is in that case, shows the relationship, how, the variety of relationships, taking meaning, taking that particular signifiers one can have. This particular idea is, found in the works of Roland Barthes. Post-structuralism actually focuses on the role of language and its representation, right, in shaping our understanding of the world, right? It explores the different ways in which meaning is produced and it is represented in language. What post-structuralism actually emphasizes is that meaning is not stable, we can say, or it is not a kind of fixed entity, but it goes on changing, and along with that, we go on changing our understanding of the world. So at that time, meaning evolves, right? Language evolves is the basic idea of what post-structuralism is all about. Now let us have brief of Roland Barthes. Roland Barthes was born in 1915 in northern France and graduated from the University of Sorbonne, right, in Paris, where he studied, grammar and philology. Right, philology is the science that deals with the language of literature and culture and all the associated areas, right, related with language and culture. Throughout his career, he had a number of different positions, right, and both in France and abroad also, we can say Germany, Egypt, Romania and America. Two important works today we'll be discussing of Roland Barthes. First is Mythologies, which was published in 1957. This particular work actually explores the ways in which myths and symbols are used. Myths are not simply stories, but they carry a lot of ideologies to reinforce, right, and maintain the cultural values. So they are not simply stories, but the ways of representing and reinforcing, cultural values and ideologies. So this particular work is, if we see the journey of Roland Barthes, we find that 1960 onwards, the whole decade, 60s and 70s, if we see, Roland Barthes is found, expanding, this particular idea, right? And ultimately he reaches to the new comprehensive and very, we can say, reflexive approach, which is very much, or we can say, similar to what post-structuralism today we call. Right. Another important work of Roland Barthes is The Death of the Author, which was published in 1967, right, in one American journal called Aspen. Right. Later it was also published in France also in 1968 in French version for French readership. This particular work evoked two important responses, and that also by great minds of France, that is Jean Derrida and Michel Foucault. Right? If we see the gist of this particular work, The Death of the Author, is that where Roland Barthes says that author's interpretation of the world, right, and biographical elements, biographical context are not so much relevant to the interpretation of text. Foucault's response is found in his very famous seminal piece of work, that is What is an Author, which was published in 1969. Now, this particular work is an attempt to engage with what Roland Barthes has discussed in that particular essay, The Death of the Author. Another important response is by Jean Derrida, right, where Derrida refers back to the essay when he was writing a kind of homage after Roland Barthes' death, and the title of that particular work is The Death of Roland Barthes, right. So Roland Barthes' argument in this particular essay is that the author is not reality, right? When you read a text, generally what comes in our mind is that sort of figure of author or what author thinks. But Roland Barthes says that author is not the reality, rather it is a bourgeois fiction, right? If you have that particular, or those who have that bourgeois mindset, right, capitalist mindset, they will think of text as a kind of creation of author, right? Barthes says that the presence of real life author behind the text, right, as a final arbiter is simply an illusion, right? We should not make author as the final judge who makes or who creates the meaning in the text. Right? So any kind of meaning is not poured into the text. That is what Roland Barthes says. Right? Meaning cannot be poured into the text. Now, actually, author is on outside, entity who is quite outside of the text. Right? So whatever you find in any text is a collection of signifiers, or whatever author is found doing in the text is collecting the signifiers, variety of signifiers that he has in his mind, right? So author is necessarily quite outside of the text, or whatever we know, as an author is actually an individual, real life individual, and an individual cannot be there in a linguistic context, or you can say cannot be there in the process of meaning making, right? So text, right, cannot be the expression of someone's personality, as someone is always outside of the text, or cannot be the part of that particular meaning making process. So in that case, death of the author is the recognition of the fact that author is a fiction, right? In this way, Roland Barthes wants to say that, right, the death of what was always a fiction, a bourgeois fiction, right? And in this particular task of Roland Barthes, the essay of Roland Barthes says that author is simply a bourgeois fiction, and there is no role of author, right, in that case to create any text. Matlab, he is a creator, he is a kind of reservoir, he is a dictionaries, he is that kind of a collection of different citations, which is a collection of signifiers, but you cannot derive meaning taking the biographical details of the author. But this, Roland Barthes argues that texts are produced by writers, and by writers we mean individual human beings, right? So individual human beings cannot be there in the text. So the work actually emphasizes that writers cannot be mistaken as authors. As a writer cannot be, writer cannot pour out its, kind of ideas and sensibilities and within a text, right? But can only act as a kind of a collection of, signifiers and dictionaries or repository of language. And that is always present there. When a writer writes something, it is always there to make a text very, interesting, right? So in that case, the particular things are used by writer, different signifiers are used by writer to produce a text. Thank you. This is all for today. We'll be meeting in the next session. Thank you.